Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome into the Shelby County High School Football Show alongside Andrew Simonson. I am Alec Etheridge, and Andrew, we've reached the midway point of the 2025 high school football season. Hard to believe, as always, that we've sprinted to this point in the season, which also means we've got a big non-region week of action taking place this week, and we've got several teams also on bye this week as well. So a little bit different of a week, but it doesn't diminish what we've got ahead this week as well. We've got a big week of action taking place between Thursday night and Friday night. One of our games of the week is going to be a Thursday night game with Thompson, Clay-Chalkville, and what I think maybe is the two best teams in the state squaring off against one another. Our other game of the week on Friday night going to be Briarwood, where we're at right now shooting the show this week as they travel just down Highway 119 to take on the Leeds Green Wave in a big non-region 5A battle. But before we jump in and talk about this week's games, Andrew, we've got a few teams on bye that worth talking about. The Pelham Panthers, the Oak Mountain Eagles, and the Clair Eagles all have a bye week this week and all shown a little bit of promise the last couple of weeks of the season. In particular, the Pelham Panthers right now sitting at 3-0 in region play. They've won 3 in a row. Their only 2 losses this season by 8 or less, with one of those by 1 point to a 7A Oak Mountain team. So this could very easily be a 4-1 team or even a 5-0 team at this point. Nonetheless, they're 3-2. They're 3-0 in region play. They've got a big one coming up after this bye week. Where do you stand on the Pelham Panthers at the midway mark?
Honestly, I think everybody is pretty much surprised except the people in that locker room. This is easily the best story of the season, seeing Pelham make such great strides through the first half of the season. Obviously, a little bit of a lighter first half of the schedule, especially when you consider region play. But putting yourself at 3-0 in region play is a fantastic way to position yourself for the playoffs, which I think was the ultimate goal for this team coming into the year. And it's just, the offense just continues to look incredible. It's a very diverse and balanced group with a lot of different scoring weapons. And I just continue to be impressed by this group every single week. Still some kinks to work out, but man, that result against Kilton County last week looked about as dominant as they come.
And I don't think that the bye week sometimes can ruin your momentum a little bit. I think it comes at the perfect time because they've poured a lot into this first half of the season. They've got a lot of momentum. I think they carry that into the bye week and into a big stretch that they're going to have in the second half, which I think they are now a playoff team. I think they're arguably going to compete for one of the top 2 spots at this point. They've got both the opponents that you want to play for the region championship coming up over the next few weeks with Spain Park and Benjamin Russell. So big opportunity ahead for the Pelham Panthers. The Oak Mountain Eagles, they also bounced back this past week as they take on Tuscaloosa County, win 43-7. They're now 3-2. They get this bye week, and then it's a tough stretch starting with Hoover, who they've still never beaten in school history the week after this. So Oak Mountain offense turned into a good position last week, got some momentum back on that side of the ball. Defense continuing to play pretty consistent football overall. What are your expectations for the Eagles down the stretch of the rest of the season?
It's going to be challenging, and I think you have to take the lessons from the last few weeks and just continue to parlay them into the rest of the schedule. Last week, obviously, was a great opportunity for them to get some momentum back on their side, bounce back a little bit against a Tuscaloosa County team that I think we all agree is probably destined for a pretty bad season overall. But you look at what Oak Mountain was able to do there. They ran the ball extremely well. Another strong night from Marty Myricks. A pretty efficient night overall from Charlie Vaccarella as well, getting the ball out in space to those weapons. And it looked like they were able to do pretty much whatever they wanted to. I think that's the ideal version of this Oak Mountain offense, being able to use both facets of that game to their advantage. And I think this is a team with a lot of potential looking up into the future. You look at this team, obviously Marty Myrick's gone after this year, but I think Judson Sachs is really going to be the next man up for that backfield. You look at that with a pretty young pass corps overall. I think this Oak Mountain offense is really looking up, and they're going to have some great opportunities to make some noise down the stretch.
And finally, the Clair Eagles, they're on a bye this week as well. The record 0-5. It doesn't look great on paper, but we've started to see some of those improvements the last few weeks, and the bye coming at the perfect time for their progression moving forward. In my opinion, they've started to play a little bit better. Now they get a bye week, and they get their 2 easiest opponents in Brookwood and Chilton County after this, 2 games that they're going to want to win. They need to win to get some momentum in this program. So great opportunity ahead the next few weeks for the Clair Eagles as well.
Absolutely. And I think you look at a lot of these games, and I believe I said it last week as well, you could easily flip some of those into wins if you just played consistent football. And I think a little bit of those inconsistencies showed a tad bit last week against Chelsea, but Chelsea just has such a powerful offense that's really hard to stop them for all 48 minutes of the game, unless I guess you're Pelham. But overall, I do think there's a lot of good things to look at for this Calera team. I think there's a lot of good pieces on this team still. It's just going to be about how they come together down the stretch. And like you said, this 3-week stretch is going to be absolutely crucial for the rest of the season. You look at a bye week this week, you take all those lessons, kind of stockpile them, get a good week and a half of practice, and then take those into a Brookwood game that you absolutely should win, and then a Chilton County game that you should absolutely at least be competitive in, if not win. You take that in down the stretch, you get people like Helena at the end of the season that could possibly look like a winnable game as well. I think this is shaping up to be overall a strong possible finish for the Calera Eagles.
And it begins with the defense, too. That's got to be the big focus this bye week. One, getting rest, getting healthy, but working on the defensive approach. That's been the struggle so far this season. If they improve there, we've seen enough offensive improvement that they're going to have some opportunities ahead for some wins here over the next few weeks. So we'll see what lies ahead. That's our quick rundown for Pelham, Oak Mountain, and Calera, all on bye this week. Real quick, before we jump into the show, I want to thank our sponsors. You'll hear more about many of them throughout the show, but with several teams on bye, we won't get to talk about them as much as we usually do. Wayne's Pest Control, callwaynes.com. Don't forget about them. 3D Air Services, Oak Mountain Hearing, and Montevallo Main Street. Very grateful for all of their sponsorships on the Shelby County High School football show. But that's the quick opener there, the quick hitter. We're now going to jump in. We've got 2 games of the week that we're going to start off with. The Thompson Warriors, our Thursday night game. The Briarwood Lions, our Friday night game. Both of our games of the week. We start with the Thompson Warriors. It was a slow start a week ago for the Thompson Warriors as they fall behind 3-0 to Vestavia Hills in a battle in that first half, but ultimately 7-3 lead at the half, but they came out and just dominated in the second half. 21 points in the third quarter, 28 points total in the first 14 minutes of that second half as they go on to win that one, running away from Vestavia 35-3. So this is a Thompson team that's playing some good football right now, and it comes at a good time as they take on Clay-Chalkville, who has just been completely dominant all season long to this point. So a huge matchup. I think the 2 best teams in the state of Alabama this year. I think Clay-Chalkville could compete with just about every single 7A team out there, and we've seen that the last couple of years with the success they've had against Thompson. And they'll have that opportunity again here on a Thursday night in our first game of the week that we're going to jump into here in just a second. But first, we got to talk about Wayne's Pest Control, proud sponsor of the Thompson Warriors on this year's show. While the Thompson Warriors are playing defense against their opponent, Wayne's Pest Control is playing defense for your home. This football season, don't let mosquitoes, fleas, or ticks sideline your family's outdoor fun. Wayne's environmentally safe mosquito treatments will keep your yard clear, and their affordable Mosquito Plus program will also eliminate fleas and ticks. Protect your family and pets today and take the bite out of the great outdoors. For quality of service and peace of mind, trust Wayne's Pest Control. Call 866-WAYNES-1 or visit callwaynes.com. So, Andrew, the big thing, and it's 2 weeks in a row now for the Thompson Warriors, and it's pretty obvious that head coach Mark Freeman is trying to get this offense to be as balanced as they can possibly be. We know they can go out there and have explosive plays. He'll tell you they can't beat every opponent with explosive plays, and he's defining a team like Clay-Chalkville because of how physical they are and how fundamentally sound they are on the defensive side of the football. So when you look at this matchup, it seems like another chance where they're going to try to do that, which may limit some early scoring, but then that offense can explode when they need to at the right time. So in a matchup like this, I mean, this is a game the last several years that has just been one possession game after one possession game. What's the outlook?
It's almost been like a grinding defensive game in most of their meetings over the last couple of years. Yep. And I think that's what you could kind of expect again this year. But you do look at the underlying numbers, and they are pretty much the same for both of these teams. I mean, you look at the offenses, both in absolutely phenomenal shape. You look at Clay-Chalkville scoring 51 points per game against a fairly difficult schedule. Hueytown, Ramsey, Pell City, and then just coming off of a game against Brandon, Mississippi, where they absolutely handled their opponents. And it's really been, although you look at this game over the last couple of years, it's been really run-focused from Clay-Chalkville. The pass game is really starting to improve from this Cougars team. You look in particular at that connection from Aaron Fry to Corey Barber, now that Barber has transferred back to Clay-Chalkville. It's been an absolutely phenomenal thing to watch, and I think that's going to put a lot of tests on Thompson's corners, but it's been a good unit overall. This defense has been absolutely phenomenal. 6.6 points per game this season and just 9 points overall to in-state opponents. Yep. It's been a solid, very strong unit that I would argue is the best in the entire state of Alabama. And when you look at Clay-Chalkville allowing just 7.8 points per game as well. You got two incredible defenses, and it's really going to be a question of what gives on either of these teams. How are they going to find those little advantages, find those little moments in these teams, because that's what it's going to take. These two teams will not give you much, so take advantage of those moments when they come.
Yeah, just a quick little recap for both right now. Clay-Chalkville sitting at 5-0 on the season. They've given up 15 or less in every game so far this season on the defensive side, and they've scored 42 or more on the offensive side, hence why they're 5-0. That's a recipe for success right there. The Thompson Warriors sitting at 4-1, that lone loss to Grayson, a game that I've said several times. They controlled that one throughout. I think they were still the better team against a top 5 team in the country. I still think the Thompson Warriors are a top 10 team nationally in the country this year. And in their first 3 region games, that's what they've looked like as they've outscored their opponents 145-3 in region play so far. They've gotten some of their easier opponents in region play out of the way now, so it's going to get a little bit more real down the stretch. But Vestavia is a solid football team. Mm-hmm. We saw what they did against Auburn. We've seen how competitive they've been against some of the best teams that they've faced this year, and that's a good win for Thompson. And Freeman knew it after the game as well this past week. But the last 3 years in this matchup, 17-14, Thompson wins in 2022. Since then, Clay's won the last 2, 36-33. Don't know what happened in that one in 2023. And then last year, back to reality, a 14-13 overtime game. So they score just 27 points combined with overtime in that one. So you tend to think with the way these two defenses are playing, it's going to be another defensive slugfest in this one. But if you're Thompson, to me, I've seen them the last couple of weeks. When they decide that they want to sling the ball around the yard, they've got the best quarterback in the state, possibly the country, and they've got 3, 4, 5 receivers at any given time who can go 70 yards for a touchdown. So to me, I take a step back. It's worked so far this season. It's a non-region game. I'm going to go out there and just sling the ball around the yard in a game like this and see what happens.
I mean, it's a team that's built for the air raid pretty much, and they can really do that very well. And there's barely been any games outside of maybe the start of last season that Thompson hasn't been able to exert its will throughout the air, especially with the deep ball going its way. But I do think Freeman has a point. You do look at some of these challenging opponents who are kind of going to come up down the road, and especially you look at this Clay-Chalkville team, you got to establish the tempo. And I think they do have a solid backfield in R.J. Evans and K.J. Jackson. It's just about getting them involved and making sure that they can complement what's going on at the pass game, or at the very least take some time off the clock and have that be your best form of defense as well.
Well, what's amazing to me is this offensive line has been incredible in the pass blocking, and Seaburn may have to get out and throw on the run every now and then, which he's great at. But the run blocking just hasn't been what it needs to be to this point. I think that's going to be a key. I think that's as big as the play calling is finding a way that they can open up some seams for this run game up front on the offensive line.
Yeah, and I think outside of maybe the Tuscaloosa County game, which I think we can call a little bit of an outlier, this team is still kind of waiting on that complete performance. You saw that slow start against Carver. You saw that slow start against Vestavia.
Which is just insane to think about. That is so scary to think about.
Exactly. Like, those two games could have been even more blowouts if they would have just put their foot on the gas, or at least flipped the effort into the first half and let the backups come in the second half earlier in the game. And it's just really scary to think about how much more potential this team has. And I think Freeman still knows that they have some more in the tank, and that they need to show it on the field. And that's where it's going to come in handy, these games against teams like Clay-Chalkville that are going to bring the best out of you. You have another game against Hewitt-Trussville, which I think is going to be for the region title next week. Those are two games that you're going to want to get up for and make sure you're giving your all for 48 minutes of this game. So I really do believe that these two games right here are going to be really definitive of what we're going to see from Thompson overall. I think Thompson's going to be pretty close in a winner in this one. I think they're going to make the big plays that they need to, find their spots, and get that win just because of how opportunistic they are. But expect Freeman to want to get every single ounce out of these guys for all the minutes of this game.
Well, and I think they're learning how to coach this team too. Mm-hmm. They've got a lot of stars on the field. They've got a lot of playmakers who want to get out in space and make big-time plays on the offensive side of the ball, but they've got that defense to rely on. That defense is not going to give up a lot of points to anybody this season, and they know it. They know how good they are defensively. If they continue to do what they're doing, they're going to be in every game. So that offense, I think, like you said, you hit the nail on the head. Freeman knows they've got another gear they can get to, and they can become even more dynamic and dangerous when that run game gets involved because of how much that's going to open up space down the field. So I think they continue to work on that this week. I really do. And you really don't want to do too much. The only way you get beat in this game is if you're too worried about injuries and stuff like that with the rest of region play coming up, not giving too much away down the stretch of the season. But I think Thompson, like I said, I think Thompson is a top 10 team nationally. I think Clay-Chalkville could be a highly ranked team nationally as well. But Thompson right now, I feel like the better team overall so far this season with the level of competition that they've played, but also what they've shown on the field. It just comes down to that fast start. I mean, not starting slow, I think, will be a key. So, Andrew, final thoughts on this one as we shift away from the Thompson Warriors here.
Probably going to be the best matchup in the entire state of Alabama this year, and definitely looking forward to seeing what these two teams do to stack up against each other. And if Thompson's able to get any sort of a statement in this one, I know they're kind of out of the national title race right now because of that loss to Grayson, but you've got to start talking about this team as one of the best in the country, whoever wins this game.
Yeah, I agree. I think these are the two best teams in the state this year, regardless of classification. Two of the heaviest state championship contenders in 6A and 7A, respectively. End of the day, though, I think the Thompson Warriors, with the ability they have offensively, but more importantly, pairing that with what I think is the best defense in the state in this game is going to make the difference. I think the Thompson Warriors walk away with a big win, and it'll come at a big time as they continue to build steam ahead of a huge showdown with Hewitt-Trussville in region play the week after. The Briarwood Lions, they continue to improve on the offensive side of the ball, and I look back at this team over the first couple of weeks of the season, honestly did not think they were going to be a team that was able to put together and string together offensive success this season. They just looked lost on that side of the football, looking for playmakers to step up, and now all of a sudden they've scored 76 combined in the last two games, coming off a 36-22 win over Carver 2 weeks ago and a 40-22 win over Winona this past week. So the offense continuing to progress. The defense is doing exactly what it needs to do as well. Now they get a road trip to take on Leeds, and we'll talk more about it in just a minute, but this is the game that sparked their strong finish last year where they won 5 in a row to end the season. They do that again this year. They're going to end the season very highly ranked and as a team that could win a 5A state championship. Before we talk about this game, though, we got to talk about proud sponsor of the Briarwood Lions, the 3D Air Services. Since 2005, 3D Air Services has proudly called Shelby County home. They're more than just your trusted HVAC company. They're your neighbors, friends, and supporters. From keeping your home comfortable year-round to sponsoring local schools and athletic programs, they are committed to making a difference in our community. As proud sponsors of the Briarwood Lions, 3D Air believes in the power of teamwork, dedication, and community spirit, values they carry with them in every job they do. 3D Air Service is your trusted neighbor, keeping Shelby County comfortable one home at a time. So, Andrew, this is a matchup. Leeds enters this game off a 30-7 loss to Jacksonville. Takes a little bit of luster out of this matchup, but for Briarwood, it's not going to take anything away from it. They know how big this matchup is. They know what it's going to mean for them as they have some big matchups looming over the next couple of weeks that determine if they're going to win a region championship.
Yeah, and to me, you have two top 10 teams in all of Class 5A. I know the rankings aren't going to say it, but to me, that's what this matchup is, because you have a Leeds team that looked absolutely great before last week. Overall, they're scoring 33 points per game on offense, allowing just 15.8 points per game on defense. But for this Leeds team, this is kind of the first big test that they face. Jacksonville probably going to be about the 3 or 4 seed within that region. Now you get a Briarwood team that looks like if it wins against Corner next week, will probably end up as that region champion. And potentially finish undefeated in the region because you have John Carroll Catholic and Hayden afterwards. But for this Leeds team, they're going to want to come out, establish themselves within this one, because afterwards you got St. Clair County, Moody, Centerpoint, and Pelham. And those two region games against St. Clair and against Moody are going to be absolutely crucial in determining their ceiling as well. But you have a Briarwood team that overall is just looking more and more confident by the week. You look at that game last week against Winona. I don't think this team last year wins that game solely because you look at what Jamison Barnes wasn't able to do on the ground. He got a lot of touches, but wasn't able to do a whole lot on the ground for them overall. But then Charles Dedman goes ahead and steps up, has an absolutely phenomenal day overall. 215 passing yards, yes, but 4 touchdowns overall on 12 of 15 passing. So was able to do a lot there and get a lot done for this Briarwood team. And I think overall, that balance is going to be crucial for them going forward. That's why I don't think they win this game last year, but I think that's why they win a game like this year against Winona, is because they have that more complete offense. They're looking a lot more dangerous overall, and I think that positions themselves as an even more dangerous team going into the final stretch this year, which is terrifying to say because you look at this team last year. Yeah, I think they had a little bit of a better defense, but they were a little bit more one-dimensional on offense. You couldn't stop Luke Reynolds, but that was also the only thing they had to do. The rest of the offense was still kind of growing around them. Now they've had some time to grow. Now they're showing the fruits of that labor.
Yeah, that's the note I have down right here. The big reason that I think Briarwood wins this game and they go on to win the region championship next week. Well, I say next week. 99% chance they win the region championship if they beat Corner. But the big note I have is Charles Dedman's success, but also Sam Canale last week stepping up as well. They found that connection. If that connection is going to be there continuously moving forward, this team reaches its full potential, and they instantly become a state championship contender in the 5A classification. So this is a huge stretch for Briarwood these next 2 weeks to keep things going. You don't want to take a step back this week because of what lies ahead next week. So full force this week, win this game, go into next week, and put everything you can into that one. This Briarwood team's going to be sitting pretty here in a few weeks as we wind down region play. But Andrew, the big key for you in this one, I know you just talked about the balance of it. Ultimately, is that something you think is going to lift them to win over what is still, I think last week was just an off week for Leeds, an off week performance-wise for Leeds, still a very good Leeds team.
Yeah, exactly. And they're going to give this Briarwood team all they have. I expect a really good, really competitive game that's going to be very watchable overall because of what these two teams can do on both sides of the football. But I think right now Briarwood has more momentum and is more battle-tested than this Leeds team right now. I think the fruits of the last few weeks start carrying forward into a matchup like this and into a matchup against Corner. I think this team overall is looking very complete. They're in another gear right now, and I think they know it. I think you have a team playing with a lot more confidence than they did in the first few weeks, and they're starting to come together, and that's a really scary thought for the rest of Class 5A. I think Briarwood uses this game, makes a little bit of a statement, and then starts to work its way back into state title contention from there.
I agree. I think that the confidence they're playing with right now, along with the talent and skill they have, is a huge difference maker for them. With Leeds coming off a loss, they may be pressing a little bit more. So, yeah, I agree. I think Briarwood walks away with the win. Going to be a tough battle. Leeds, that defense is really good. This is going to be one of the tougher defenses that Briarwood's faced in recent weeks. I think it's going to be a very tight football game. But Briarwood finally showing that balance offensively, I think, can make the big offensive play they need to late in this game to pick up a win. And if they can do that, they continue to gain that steam, and it's a big matchup next week where we'll be talking about a possible region championship here for the Briarwood Lions. So big opportunities ahead. Stay focused. The Lions have a great chance to continue to improve and get better and climb up the rankings to prove themselves as one of the best in the 5A classification. Well, it's going to be a week of how you respond for the Spain Park Jaguars. A very difficult loss this past Friday night, 35-34 to Benjamin Russell, a game that was back and forth where Spain Park took a lead, Ben Russell stormed back and took a lead, Spain Park stormed back and took a lead, and then Ben Russell scores, and Spain Park can't answer on one of their final drives. So a back-and-forth game, and now they jump into a week where the only way they get beat is if they don't bounce back and get focused against James Clemens this week. A great opportunity for them to get a break from region play really this week ahead of a stretch that's going to determine the seeding here in Class 6A Region 3. Before we talk about this game against James Clemens, we got to talk about Wayne's Pest Control proudly sponsoring the Spain Park Jaguars. And while the Spain Park Jaguars are playing defense against their opponent, Wayne's Pest Control is playing defense for your home. This football season, don't let mosquitoes, fleas, or ticks sideline your family's outdoor fun. Wayne's environmentally safe mosquito treatments will keep your yard clear, and their affordable Mosquito Plus program will also eliminate fleas and ticks. Protect your family and pets today and take the bite out of the great outdoors. For quality service and peace of mind, trust Wayne's Pest Control. Call 866-WAYNES-1 or visit callwaynes.com to learn more. Andrew, you took the trip down to Alex City last week. You saw this game, how wild it was, the back-and-forth nature of it. I kind of felt going into that game, two good defenses, but that the offenses were going to click in that one, and it was going to be almost who had the ball last, which it came close to that exact situation. And, I know a difficult situation with the PAT blunder and that kind of making the difference at the end of the night. But two very good football teams. Spain Park still easily one of the best teams in this region, if not the best. I mean, those two teams are neck and neck with Benjamin Russell and Spain Park. So this week they take on James Clemens. What do you see from last week to this week? Does Spain Park sulk at all? Do they bounce back quickly? And do they have any issues with a James Clemens team that's a little bit better than they maybe have been in the past?
Oh, I don't think this team sulks at all. I think they have a lot to be proud of that performance. Obviously, you have some ways that you're kind of kicking yourself. A few big plays or some penalties that they let off in that game that let Ben Russell back into that one, and then obviously the two missed extra points. Really the difference in that one. Everything was there for Spain Park to win that game.
Yep.
And they stacked up against a team that I think is going to be one of the contenders in Class 6A. I'm going to say it right now, both these two teams should be in the quarterfinals at least this year. They are both absolutely phenomenal, complete teams, and that was just a showdown of titans on Friday night. So I think that you look at a game like that and you kind of think that we can compete with anybody overall in Spain Park because they showed a lot of good stuff in that game. Obviously, I don't think a true complete performance, but I think you saw enough out of that game to know that this team not only has the talent to win pretty much every game, but they have the fight and the toughness to compete against just about anyone, which I think is a lot more important overall because that attitude overall and the way that they play the game takes them over the top and helps them measure up against some of the top teams within Class 6A. And it's going to really come in handy in a game against a Class 7A team like James Clemens that solid overall, but definitely something that you look at this game as a great opportunity to get a win.
Spain Park won this one 34-24, maybe a little closer last year than we expected. This year, James Clemens is on paper a 2-2 team. They had to forfeit their opener, technically 3-1 on the field overall this season as they forfeited that 35-21 win over Gardendale to start the season. Their lone head-to-head loss, though, a 54-7 thumping to Bob Jones, a decent team, but Spain Park, they should be the better team in this game, and I think it does come down to, are they fueled to power forward after last week more than, dang, that sucks, we just lost a tough game. And so you kind of gave me a little bit of an answer to that question. So then I ask you, one, what do you think makes the biggest difference in this game? And two, you seem to be pretty confident in Spain Park. How close do you think this game is?
I mean, I think this game still ends up being fairly close. I think James Clemens overall is a pretty good team. Bob Jones definitely looks like a good contender out of that Huntsville region. I think this James Clemens team probably right up there at number 2 with Austin in that region. But I think they're a good matchup and a good test for Spain Park. I think they look at the result last year against this team, a little bit of a closer game, probably one of the closest ones of this week last year. And they say that this is an opportunity for them to get a little bit better of a result against this team, and knowing that you can't take a matchup like this lightly, even though you do have a pretty big game against Pelham looming next week, and then some big games down the stretch as well. But overall, I think this team has a lot of strengths on its side right now. But I said going into last week, it's going to be the supporting cast that decides how they end up down the stretch of the season. And the supporting cast definitely came to play last week. Connor grabbed a couple of early scores there. Barrett Price has really looked like a strong receiver over the last few weeks. And you even got Mason McClure involved on the ground. And those defensive playmakers, EJ Curley, JD Bonamy, Carter Holloway, and Mosley as well. These guys overall just look so good just as a complete unit. And I think that a team like this goes out, uses those lessons from last week, and gets a solid result here this week against James Clemens.
You talked about the defensive playmakers, and that's where I'll go as the big key and difference in this game. You know, last week I thought it could turn into a track meet. I thought the defenses would struggle a little bit because of the offensive playmakers. This week, well, not only do I think they will bounce back and have a better defensive performance, they've got to. They've got to get better and more consistent defensively the rest of the way and play like they did those first few weeks of the season. I think this is a good opportunity for them to do that this week, and I think that defense does play better. And when you get that defense playing that consistent style of football, like last week, if the defense had played strong from start to finish, the way that offense was playing and building up that early lead, Spain Park has no problem winning that game. So the defense has got to. If they get a comfortable lead in a game like this, they've got to be able to put it away on the defensive side of the football, especially as you move forward against a team like Pelham, which we still think Spain Park's probably the better team in that matchup. But I'm here to tell you, if Spain Park doesn't show up and play defense in that game, Pelham's offense is going to make them pay. And so they're going to have to, the Jaguars are going to have to play a little bit better on the defensive side of the ball. And I think they know that. I think they know that that's going to be a key for them to have success and get where they ultimately want to go this year, which is a Class 6A state championship. And to get there, the offense is going to have to play like it did last week. The defense is going to have to be more like what we saw the first few weeks of the season. I think they bounce back this week on that defensive side of the ball. On the offense, I think they continue to get better and better. That's a scary thought. I think that offense is going to get better and better as each week goes along. So big opportunity for Spain Park, a non-region game here against James Clemens as they get a big one the week after this back in region play against the Pelham Panthers. We'll see how they respond from that tough, heartbreaking loss last week to Benjamin Russell. The Chelsea Hornets and their ground attack returned in a big way last week. Chase Malone topping 150 yards and Morgan Barnes basically right at 100 yards as well with 3 touchdowns apiece. That unit's back. They're ready to roll. They jump out of region play this week to take on Paul Bryant, and that unit should be as dominant as they've been all season. They take down Clair 42-25 last week, a game that was a little bit tight at times, but then when they decided they were going to turn that run game into go mode, it was dominant from then on forward. So the Chelsea Hornets back in consistent form there on that offensive side of the football. I still think defensively the consistency is going to be key for them down the stretch. But if this ground game plays like that week in and week out moving forward, they're going to have a lot of success, and they really shouldn't have any problem doing that against Paul Bryant.
I mean, what have I been saying all year? This Chelsea run game is probably the best in the entire region, and it's going to be really hard to stop this team. They did exactly that against Clair, and a team that overall, I think they have a solid group overall, does Chelsea. But like you said, the consistency needs to be there. And I think this coaching staff realizes it too. Those little moments where they let Clair get back into the game, yep. I think they see those as opportunities to improve overall.
I think that's been the biggest thing the whole season is they can look so good defensively at times. The offense gets a little bit of breathing room, and then they just make some big lapses and give up some explosive plays. The defense they can't protect a big lead. And that's what, if they want to be great, if they want to be a region championship contender, if they want to be one of those top 2 teams out of this region, that's the big thing that's going to make the difference is that consistency, because they can look so good at times. And if they played at that level for a full game, this is a team that becomes so dangerous with how good they are running the football.
And you look at what Cassidy was saying in his post-game media availability last week, and I think he really just believes that it comes down to just this team wanting it over the course of all 4 quarters on both sides of the ball, really. If this team decides to put together a complete performance, I'm really scared for what their potential is because they look like an absolute, not just playoff contender, but definitely top 2 contender as well. But you look at a game like this, you got a Chelsea team that's now scoring 35 points per game with marks of 40, 42, and 51 overall, and you got a Paul Bryant defense that's giving up 31 points per game, and they've scored just 12 points all year. You've got a big opportunity for a big statement on both sides of the ball. I think you look overall, this is going to be a good chance for you to kind of grow some of those weapons around you with Chelsea, especially that pass game, so that you can complement a little bit of what they're doing on the ground. Obviously, the run game is going to be so dominant that you can pretty much use it to do whatever you want, but the more weapons you have, the better. And then you look at the defense overall, it's a chance to get a really strong week under your belt. And it's a team that hasn't had a shutout on its record for almost exactly 5 years as well. I think they'll want to look and make that their goal this week. Get out of here with no points on the board and really carry that forward through the next weeks of region play. I think Chelsea wins big, but what they do in this is really going to carry on throughout the rest of the season.
I agree. I think it's and that's why I brought up the defense side. This is their opportunity for their best defensive performance of the year, in my opinion, and I think they're going to come out and play like that. I think they're going to come out, like you said, fight for a shutout in this matchup. But the other thing that you mentioned there that was key for them moving forward, the passing game. Can they work that in this week? Because if they can find some downfield plays in the passing game, it's going to be open. Because that rushing attack, we know defenses are going to stack the box against this Chelsea offense. So you're going to have some open opportunities to throw the football down the stretch. They've got to find a way to implement that and mix it in with that run game. So I'll be watching for that closely as well. But the defense, I think the most important thing that we need to see consistency from if they can play well this week and continue to grow that confidence on the defensive side of the ball, that's going to bode well for them with what they do offensively as a physical football team. But I think the Chelsea Hornets easily in this one against a team that's only scored 12 points combined this season. That defense is going to show up, and I think the offense continues to roll as well. Chelsea Hornets should be able to pick up a win here against Paul Bryant before they jump back into region play next week. A tough loss for the Helena Huskies this past week as they fall to Moody, a 5A state championship contender, 31-28. But I walked away from that game feeling a little bit more confident in what Helena can do the rest of the way with some games that they've got left as they look to chase down a playoff spot in Class 6A Region 3. Some great opportunities ahead for them. But first, they've got another very challenging non-region game this week, back-to-back weeks, as they continue this long streak of road games here in the middle of the season, and they head to take on Oxford this week. Before we talk about this game and what it means for the Huskies moving forward, we've got to tell you about Oak Mountain Hearing, who's proudly sponsoring the Helena Huskies on this year's show. Don't let hearing loss bench you this season. At Oak Mountain Hearing, we help you stay in the game so you don't miss a single play. Whether you need help with hearing aids, hearing loss, or tinnitus, Oak Mountain Hearing is here to help. Now open in Pelham. Call 205-728-1690 to set up a consultation. Don't let hearing issues affect your well-being. Hear every word effortlessly with Oak Mountain Hearing. 205-728-1690 or oakmountainhearing.com. And Andrew, I think when you look at Oak Mountain Hearing, the Helena Huskies have heard their wake-up call. They knew last week was a great opportunity to grow some confidence against a very, very good Moody football team who I think is going to contend, maybe win the 5A state championship this year. So you see a tight game like that. They fought against adversity. They had a chance to win that game. They lose by 3 points. They've started to grow a little bit, to me, really on both sides of the ball. But the offense showed a little bit of a different gear last week against a very good defense. Now another opportunity against an Oxford team that I think they can beat this week. And if they can win this game, that means a lot of things for them ahead with some really challenging games, but winnable games down the stretch here in region play as they look to compete for possibly a 2 seed, maybe even a region championship still with an outside chance there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a really sneaky good game that I think got a lot more intriguing after both of these two teams' results last week. Helena, I kind of underestimated them a little bit going into that Moody matchup. I'll just go on the record and say that. Mainly because of what Moody has been able to do to this point in the season. I think I've still been really high on Helena and its potential. I just thought Moody was going to come out and attack that game, which they did, but Helena held up to it really well and was able to put up a lot on its own end as well. They put up a lot of solid plays against a really good Moody defense and made it another close game like it was last year. So I think they proved a lot within that matchup about what they're able to do, particularly on the offensive side. This might be a team that favors itself in a little bit of a track meet, but I think that's what they're going to get this week as well, because you have an Oxford team that's scoring 28 points per game on offense. They've had a pretty solid schedule to this date, but they're giving up 31.4 on defense as well. And you look at some of their results last week, a 42-14 loss to Mountain Brook without their top running back and Stuart Andrews were the Spartans, and then also lost 31-7 to Moody. This is not the same Oxford team that was last year, mainly because they don't have an ACC level quarterback in that position right now, and a few weapons on the defense, obviously, having contributed to that fall off as there. So I think Helena is going to really like its chances within this one. You're going to have to capitalize on your opportunities to make plays and get a couple of stops as well. But I think you look at both of these two teams, I think they're geared in very similar ways, and it's going to make for a very entertaining football game.
I agree. I think that the big thing for me, when you hear 1 and 3, very easy to get down on the success that you've had, what's ahead, do you still buy into the season? But the 3 doesn't matter. What matters is 1 and 1, and that's their record in region play right now, with everything still ahead for them. You look after this, they've got Benjamin Russell the week after this, and then they get that stretch of 3 county teams in a row with Pelham, Clair, and Chelsea. All 3 going to be challenges. All 3 very winnable games at the same time. So if you can somehow get some more confidence in this one, go from a tight loss to a very good Moody team to in 5A to a win over a good 6A Oxford team moving forward, then you steal that game against Benjamin Russell. Now all of a sudden you've got 3 games ahead after that one that you're possibly competing for a region championship, but you're definitely still competing for either a 2, 3, or 4 seed when it comes to this region. So this is a very big week. We saw some progression offensively last week. We've seen some progression defensively at times as well. Now it's time for them to put them together. Ultimately, do you see that happening in a game like this where, like you said, these two teams and what we've seen so far, Moody, you mentioned it a second ago, what was that, 31-7?
Correct.
That Oxford lost to Moody. Helena just lost to him on the road, 31-28. Mm-hmm. So a much better performance in that game. That shows you that maybe Helena's the better team in this one.
I think Helena is the better team coming into this one, but there are just as many ways as Helena can lose this game as they can win this game, mainly because of what they've given up on the defensive side. I think if Helena comes out and plays that style of football, they're going to have a great chance to win this game. It's really about, like I said earlier, taking advantage of your chances to make plays and then minimizing them on the defensive side. But overall, I think this team has grown a lot over the last few weeks. I think they're starting to realize some of their potential, and I think they're starting to buy in a little bit and grow overall. You had a very young core overall for this team. Some senior leaders, yes, but a team that overall was a little inexperienced and still has a lot of room to grow. But I think this is the week where it starts to all come together. Yes, next week against Benjamin Russell going to be a massive test for this team. But if you win this game against Oxford, I think regardless of that result next week, you feel really good about your chances going into those last 4 games of the season. And I think this is very much a team that could still finish at 500. You probably have to win this game in order to do so. But overall, I do think Helena pulls it out in a close one.
Yeah, the only worry I have, I think, like you, and everything I just said, obviously, I think Helena's the better team going into the game. I don't think it's by much. I think these are two pretty level football teams this year. But learning to win, that's the one thing that concerns me about Helena is in a close game, are they going to be able to pull out that close game and be able to make the winning plays down the stretch? I think that's the biggest key. If they can, and to me, it all boils down to what I say every week about Helena. It's getting off to a fast start. If they can get off to a fast start this week, build a little bit of a lead rather than play from behind early, then they're going to have great chance. That, to me, that's their recipe for success the rest of the year. And for some reason, it seems like every single week they're playing from behind the 8 ball a little bit. So if they can flip that script this week against Oxford and then continue to build off of that moving forward, get those fast starts, this is a team that I think could honestly win the rest of their region games after this, including Benjamin Russell. But it starts with building that recipe for success and winning football this week, which is a fast start and closing a game. And if we can see that this week, this is going to be a dangerous team down the stretch. I think they get it done, whether it's a fast start or not. I think they finish strong in the second half in this game, and ultimately that's what makes the difference. So great opportunity for them to build that confidence with what lies ahead. So not all lost for the Helena Huskies right now. In fact, everything's still ahead for this team, including the possibility of a region championship. They need to go out and play like that on Friday night against Oxford, and I think they do that and pick up the win. The Shelby County Wildcats get a break from region play this week as they travel to take on St. Clair County following a 49-17 loss to Northside last week. I still think Northside the best team in that region, so not a bad loss for the Wildcats, but now they get another tough matchup this week against St. Clair County. The Wildcats now 3-2 overall, 2-1 in region play, so still everything ahead for this team as they look to compete for home field advantage in the playoffs. Still very much a playoff team as well this season. Definitely think they will be in the postseason, but they get a St. Clair County team where the script's kind of been flipped from last year to this year. Last year, Shelby County entered this game 5-0. St. Clair County entered this game 1-3. This year, St. Clair County 3-1. Shelby County right there pretty on par with that same record, sitting at 3-2 overall. But it's pretty clear that this year these teams look a little bit more balanced, or St. Clair County looks like the better team, whereas last year Shelby County looked like the better team coming into this game.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be a pretty competitive game overall, and I think it's because of that performance against Northside, ironically enough, last week. You look at what the offense was able to do there. They scored 17 points in admittedly a blowout against Northside, but that was more points than any opponent combined against Northside this season. And that's a team that I think is going to be right in the mix for a 5A state title. So I think there's a ton of positives that you can take from that matchup. And although I think you can argue the defense has taken a little bit of a step back in Shelby County, I think the offense has taken a massive step up, and it's arguably as good as it's been in quite some time. Because you look at this team, and it's diverse with multiple receiving and rushing weapons, And it looks like a much more complete unit overall, with a good solid identity at quarterback in Ryan Sipes, a good few weapons around him, and a good main go-to target in Dominic Woods. You complement that on the ground with both Devin Alexander and Ethan Hall, who are now, I think, kind of both at the same level after having traded off duties throughout the early part of the year. I think this team is really complete and really solid on the offensive side. It's just going to be how that defense plays, because now you're going to get a St. Clair County team that is going to be a big test for this defense overall. I think this has a potential to be a shootout. And I think both of these two teams kind of about the same level right now on the field.
So at the end of the day, when you look at this game, like you said, very similar on paper. Shelby County 25.8 points per game they're scoring, giving up 22.6. The biggest difference maker in this game seems to be, like you said, that St. Clair County offense scoring 37.5 points per game, giving up 28.3 on defense. So a little bit worse than Shelby County there, but only by a few points. Mm-hmm. Do you think that St. Clair County offense is enough to get them the win?
It's weird because the St. Clair County team has been somewhat shaky, even though after all I just said, it doesn't really feel like they have a statement win so far. I mean, yeah, they've beaten Jemison, Montgomery Catholic, and Centerpoint, but their one big test against a playoff team this year, because Montgomery Catholic probably not going to make the playoffs this year, was Moody, and they got blasted 55-0 in that game. So I think Shelby County has the better offense in this one. I think both of these defenses are going to give up some fairly big plays in this one, and they're going to have to keep their heads on a swivel and keep their wits about them, because this game could be long, it could be high scoring. I think Shelby County, though, they've gotten to a point where they're making plays consistently and getting over the line. I would not have said that about this team earlier in the season. I think they've grown tremendously, and I think that Sipsey Valley game was really that switch that flipped for this team, to where they're now starting to get things over the line. They're now starting to get those first downs and get those touchdowns. And I think those improvements are going to be enough to win a close, high-powered, entertaining ball game.
So you're going with the Wildcats. Mm-hmm. I think St. Clair County is going to get this one with that offensive side. I just think right now, Shelby County's defense has been decently consistent, obviously coming off of a tough game against Northside, but that's just the level of opponent there. Northside, a very good football team. So I do think the defense plays better this week, but facing a really good offense has been their kryptonite so far this season, and I think that's going to be the difference in this one. I think that St. Clair County offense scoring north of 35 points per game is going to have success in this one. I do think Shelby County is going to have a chance if they come out and play with the right attitude, put forth the right effort in this game. The way that offense has played this season, they're going to have an opportunity to put some points on the board in this game. If they can play to their style of play and kind of keep this at their pace, great chance they win it. But right now, with what I've seen from Shelby County's defense most recently and St. Clair County's offense, I think that St. Clair County going to walk away with the win. For the Montevallo Bulldogs, it's been a rough start to the season, but now a great opportunity for them as they take on John Carroll this week. And these are two teams that have struggled to this point in the year. The Bulldogs are coming off of a bye week. They're 1-3 right now, but they get a 1-4 John Carroll team that has also struggled so far this season. Before we talk about this game and the opportunity ahead for the Montevallo Bulldogs as they look to pick up their first or second win of the season, got to tell you about Montevallo Main Street, proud sponsors of the Montevallo Bulldogs. And whether it's Friday Night Lights or a quiet Saturday stroll, there's always something special happening on Montevallo Main Street. From unique shops and local dining to community traditions and small town charm, it's the kind of place where neighbors gather and Bulldog pride runs deep. Make downtown part of your routine before the game, after the game, and all year long. And you heard us talking about Tinglewood Festival a few weeks ago. Great success, as always, down there at Orr Park in Montevallo. That was a fantastic event. They continue to put on events like that throughout the year. We've got a great fall coming up there in Montevallo, so don't wait for that. Two can't-miss events just around the corner. Art Stalk on October 25th. Halloween-themed art walk there with live music, vendors, and fun for all ages. And then on November 1st, come back for the Day of the Dead Festival. This has been a newer tradition there in Montevallo, and it's been a whole lot of fun, very festive, and the crowds have gotten bigger and bigger each year. So a lot of fun there, a colorful celebration of culture with traditional altars, food, vendors, dancing, and live music there at the Pecan Grove in Montevallo. So, Andrew, great opportunity for the Bulldogs this week against John Carroll, two teams that have struggled at times this season, but both have a win under their belt. Who gets that second win this week?
It's weird because you look at these two teams, and I think they're fairly even coming into this matchup because they both need a spark after facing some tough competition. You got a Montevallo team that before the bye week had some tough losses to Demopolis and Northside, and then you have a John Carroll team that got run off the field against Ramsey just last week. And I think a lot of that has been alluded to their defensive struggles. Both these two teams giving up over 33 points per game. But there have been a few signs of life on both these offenses. You look at John Carroll overall, they scored 36 against Hayden, a team that they should definitely be beating within that region. And then that St. Michael game got very out of hand very quickly. St. Michael scoring, I believe, 49 points in that first half. But they ended up getting 28 in garbage time of that game against a team that's probably going to end up being at least in the semifinals of Class 5A. But you look at Montevallo overall, and I want to zone in particular to that last touchdown drive against Demopolis, because you look at this team overall, they've been struggling and really looking for an offensive answer. You get a really solid, well-constructed drive to end that game, and then all of a sudden you start talking about some of the positives coming out of that game. You start talking about whether they're going to be able to use that to build some momentum going forward. I think that's what Langer and his coaching staff wants to do for that. Zone in on the positives and start building off of that, minimize some of your mistakes from there, and then go in and attack a game like this, which you're going to have a lot more winnable games down the stretch, but this is the start of that. And if you go out and you get a good result against this one in admittedly a non-region game, I think you start to see some signs of life from this team down the stretch.
And what it can do for them, I mean, they're in a building spot right now. They're trying to build for the future, get some experience with a lot of new faces, young playmakers, and if you can finish this season strong, then that's going to bode well for them moving into next year as well and build a whole lot of confidence for a team that could get better and better, and then be a team that's competing for a playoff spot next week. And that starts with a game like this. You got to start winning games like this against opponents that right now are like-minded, but that you expect to be able to beat when you look at a 1-4 football team. So ultimately, do you think Montevallo, with that little bit of confidence you were just talking about, the growth there, that they can pick up a win against an opponent like John Carroll that has struggled as well this season?
I think they'll be in this game. I think they'll make it very close. I just think John Carroll's a little bit more battle-tested right now. You look at their schedule, they face teams like Homewood, St. Michael, and Ramsey. I don't think Montevallo has faced teams at that level despite their hard schedule to this point this year. So I think that starts to show a little bit for John Carroll and they get a win in this matchup. But I think Montevallo plays one of their best games of the season so far. I think they play their best game against a 5A class opponent this year, and they start showing the signs on both the offense and defensive side that they can make some progress down the stretch. Like I said, you're gonna have a few more tests. I think that Shelby County game in particular, probably your biggest test remaining. But you've got some opportunities. If the ball bounces your way against Sipsey Valley, if you come out and attack that game against Jemison and Vincent, I think you have some good chances of picking up some wins down the stretch. And that's what this team needs right now, like you said. This team just needs some momentum and some signs that things are going to start building their way over the next few years. I think you have to use this game as the opportunity to springboard yourself into that. And I think at least a close result does that here.
I point to one area in this game. I think when you look at it on paper, both defenses are struggling. There's no question about that. They've struggled defensively. We've also seen some struggles offensively, especially for Montevallo, and that's where I go for my big difference maker. Right now, this is a John Carroll team that's played some challenging teams. Their success on offense has come against their weaker opponents, but nonetheless, they're scoring 18.8 points per game. They've scored a combined 94 points so far this season, whereas Montevallo has scored just 20 combined points this season, averaging 5 points per game. So who capitalizes on the weaker defense the most is the difference in this one for me. And I think right now John Carroll's in a better position to do that. At the end of the year, if this game were being played, I might have a different opinion on it because I do think we're finally starting to see that little bit of progression on the offensive side for Montevallo. But with two bad defenses in this one right now, I tend to lean toward the offense that has at least shown a little bit more success to this point in the season. But like you said, I think this is going to be a very good football game, actually. I think it's going to be entertaining. I think Montevallo is going to have a chance to win this one. And if they can find that one offensive play, there's a great chance that they can walk away with the win here against John Carroll. Since their 18-8 loss to open the season to Winterboro, the Vincent Yellow Jackets have responded in ideal fashion the last several weeks. The defense, they've given up 18 or less in every game so far this season. The offense, they've scored 34 or more in the last 3 in that winning streak. So Vincent, they're clicking right now on both sides of the football, and now they get a Childersburg team sitting at 0-5 on the season right now. And just an FYI, the one loss for Vincent this year came to Winterboro. They're dominating Class 1A opponents right now. Very good football team. So that 18-8 loss to open the season, not even looking that bad at this point as well. So Vincent playing good football. You look at this Childersburg team coming off 38-14 loss to BB Comer in their most recent game. Flip that around for Vincent's results against BB Comer, 37-18 win over BB Comer. So that shows you where these two programs are right now.
Absolutely. You look historically, this is a rivalry that Childersburg has dominated, despite these two teams being only a few miles down the road from each other. Childersburg leads this all-time series 21-3-1. But of those 3 losses for Childersburg, 2 of them have been in their last 3 meetings. These are 2 teams that have gone in completely different directions. Childersburg, a Class 3A team that has absolutely struggled over the last couple of seasons, just 1 win over the last 2 years. And they're sitting at 0-5 right now, scoring 17 points per game against admittedly a hard schedule. Lee Scott, Glenwood, and BB Comer are probably 3 of the top 4 teams within that region. But that defense is looking extremely vulnerable for the Tigers, giving up 37.8 points per game. And you're looking at a Vincent team right now that's starting to click. They've had some growing up to do, yes, but I think they're now in a spot right now where they're starting to get a grasp on their full potential.
Yeah, so I take it you think Vincent's going to walk away with this one?
Absolutely. I think they're going to get a big statement on both sides of the ball. I think you look at a game like last week against a really good Sulligent team, you're able to go out there, exert your will on both sides of the ball. Lane Mims getting 3 touchdowns in the air. You get a great day from Jaden Roberts as well. I think this team on offense starting to realize its potential that it maybe didn't have in that first game against Winterboro, and that defense just continues to be an absolute force. You got guys going all over the field making tackles, constantly getting in double digits in that regard, getting stops as well. I think Vincent comes out, wins this game handily, makes a big statement going into what's going to be next week is a really tough and really good road trip next week against Tuscaloosa Academy.
Yep, and when I look at this game, Childersburg scoring 19 or less in all but 1 game this season, going up against a Vincent defense, giving up 15.5 points per game. Not going to be a recipe for success when you look at that Childersburg offense being able to score enough points. And I say that because this Vincent offense has found its identity. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's been the biggest thing. Since that opening loss of the season, they gained a little bit of confidence going into their bye week. And since then have just been continuing to click on the offensive side of the football. So finding their identity there, paired with a really good defense against a team that's struggling on both sides of the ball, Vincent should be able to name their score in this one, really. And, you talk up the team. You don't want them to come out, hear that noise, and lay an egg. Mm-hmm. But they're the better team right now, and they just need to go out and play like it, and they'll take care of business here in this matchup against Childersburg. And you talked about it, what lies ahead, some great opportunities. Everything's still ahead for Vincent and their goals this season to win a region championship, compete for a 2A state championship, and winning games like this handedly and gaining some more confidence go a long way in doing that. We both think the Yellow Jackets get it done here against Childersburg. That takes us to our AISA and ACSC breakdown as all 3 of our teams in action this week, including a matchup featuring 2 of them as Cornerstone and Coosa Valley battle in a county rivalry there, an 8-man play there in the AISA, and then Evangel taking on Lighthouse in the ACSC. So 2 big games, Andrew. Where are you going? Cornerstone, Coosa Valley, a game that's probably more interesting than it's been in a long time. And then Evangel and Lighthouse, with Evangel coming off of that big win last week.
Let's start out with the county rivalry with 2 teams that really don't like each other in Cornerstone and Coosa Valley. You got 2 teams coming in off of different results. You got Cornerstone fresh off of a bye and a dominant shutout against Springwood. And then you've got a Coosa Valley team that just lost a pretty lopsided game to what's admittedly going to be the other state title contender in Class A in Escambia Academy. And you look at these 2 teams, I think they've got a lot to prove in this matchup. It's their first meeting since 2023 because of those injuries that happened to the Rebels last season. And I think that you look at Coosa Valley's offense overall, and despite the success for Cornerstone's defense. I think that Coosa Valley is going to have a lot more opportunities to make plays, especially through the air. Obviously, Braylon Small's health a little bit of a question going into this one, but I think that you have a team that's looking a lot better on the offensive side, and if they have all their pieces together, they should put together a solid result here. But Cornerstone is just so good right now, especially on the ground. You look at what guys like Jackson Moore and Malachi Adams are able to do, and I think this team's starting to come together, be a little bit more balanced as well on the offensive side. This team is going to have a lot of opportunities to go out and make a statement in this one. I think they definitely get more consistent stops on the defensive side, and they get their big plays to hit. I think Cornerstone ends up getting the edge in this one.
And I literally had basically the same stuff written down, saying that, Cornerstone's the better team, but I think the Rebels are going to show some fight. Just don't think it's going to be enough to be able to pick up a win here.
Absolutely. And then you go back to Evangel and their game against Lighthouse, and last week was exactly what the doctor ordered for this Evangel team. A dominant win against your rival in Ezekiel. With conference play starting last week, they're now 1-0 in that regard, despite their 2-3 overall record, and that's what matters. They're now fighting for that ACSC state title, and the road's going to get tougher after this one, because I think Southern Christian and East Central, two of the best teams of that group of five, but you have a Lighthouse side overall that played Southern and East Central pretty close, and I think that this is a good step up for them as they start to ramp up for those last two conference games. You obviously having Eli Black is a big boost for this team, but having such a big team win last week, getting performances from a lot of different guys around the field, I think that got their confidence back. I think Evangel wins a close one in this one, get to 2-0 in conference play.
Now, last week, I looked at their matchup with Ezekiel, and I thought they would come out and play angry, determined. I thought the defense would play extremely well because that's been the most consistent unit for them this season, and they came out and they picked up that 38-0 shutout over Ezekiel. Big rival to kick off ACSC play. They're battle-tested, taking on a Lighthouse team that's lost 2 straight. I expect the Lightning to come out, put together a strong performance as well, and improve to 2-0 there in region play, and even up their record overall this season. So I think they're going to finish strong. I know that the tough finishes early in the season, I think, have prepared them well for what lies ahead down the stretch. So another good opportunity for the Lightning there in that game is that we look to see if they'll pick up another win in ACSC play, and both expect them to. And then Cornerstone, Coosa Valley, the big rivalry, as good as Coosa Valley's been in a while, this should be a fun game. But ultimately, we think Cornerstone just a little bit more on the offensive side of the football right now to be able to pull away or pick up a win there against Coosa Valley. Great week for our AISA and ACSC teams. Well, it's that time again, our SCR Stars of the Week from another big week of action. And like we said last week we had a long list of names, some impressive stats, and we talked about how we thought that might become the new norm. And sure enough, here we go, another week with a long list of names and some incredible stats that we're going to talk about as Andrew and I name our top 2 stars of the week each, and then we give you some honorable mentions as well. And I think everybody is tied for second on our list right now that's not mentioned as one of our top 2 that we talk about, just hearing and looking at some of the stats that we saw last week. So, Andrew, I turn to you. Let's get your first 2 stars of the week, and then I know you got a couple of honorable mentions from that Spain Park game you want to talk about as well.
Video game numbers overall for all these guys. And you especially look at a guy like Chase Malone, who's going to be my first star of the week from Chelsea. He took 26 carries. Yes, a pretty heavy workload. Goes for 212 all-purpose yards and 3 touchdowns. A really, really solid night from him as well. And then you look at a backup like Morgan Barnes, who is kind of up there with him as well with 3 touchdowns. But Malone getting more yardage on the ground. He's really able to be the bell cow for this team. He definitely gets my star of the week for powering this offense to a solid result against Calera. And then my biggest overall star from that Spain Park game that I saw was E.J. Curley. He had 12 tackles overall in the night, playing from that linebacker position. He had a chance for 9 solo tackles, and then even added in half a sack as well on quarterback Kingston Prier for Benjamin Russell. And just overall, the Spain Park defense played hungry and they played ferocious. Did give up a few plays in the end, but overall did a great job of getting some plays against a Benjamin Russell team that's really dangerous on offense.
Yep. So I look at mine. I start with DeMonte Tab as my first star of the week out there at Thompson, not only for the complete performance he put together in that game, but really what he was able to do in the first half. When Thompson's offense was struggling, they fall behind 3-0 in that game. They lead just 7-3 at the half. The reason that game was as close as it was in the first half was because of DeMonte Tab. Big hit after big hit, breaking up passes, had an incredible game, 10 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, broke up several passes, like I said, and was at the line of scrimmage as a defensive back and a guy that's great in coverage. He was at the line of scrimmage a lot, making some big hits as well. So great performance for him there at Thompson as he helped the Warriors pick up that big win over Vestavia Hills. And then the other one, you hear a stat line of under 100 yards for a receiver, and a lot of times that may not stand out to you, but it's right here at Briarwood. And this is a guy in Sam Canale who, if he can continue to be a go-to option there for Charles Dedman, then this is a Briarwood team that takes that next step. He's an athletic playmaker. He can make big-time plays. 91 yards and 2 touchdowns is exactly what they need out of him. If they can get that every week with their ability to play defense and run the football, then Charles Dedman's going to have success throwing the football. They're still going to have success running the football, and they become not only a region championship contender, but a state championship contender. So that 91 yards and 2 touchdowns is very important for a team like Briarwood, and it's exactly what they need out of a guy like Sam Canale moving forward. So a great performance for him. Also Tab as my 2 stars of the week. And then we've got a long list of honorable mentions. Andrew, did you have any others that you wanted to go over real quick?
Definitely want to go over a few more guys, especially. Vincent's Jaden Roberts had another phenomenal week. Have to mention him for going over 100 yards. Got 119 yards and 2 touchdowns off of just 9 touches, which is a really good night for him overall. And then you want to talk about even more efficiency. Marcus Arnold, the definition of efficiency. 3 receptions, 3 touchdowns. Got 80 yards in the process and had a really good game against Chilton County. And then I want to highlight 2 quarterbacks as well. Brock Bradley, a couple mistakes on the night, but overall really solid. 17 for 24 for 295 all-purpose yards and 2 touchdowns as well. He did a really good job of keeping this offense moving down the field, and I think the team looked the best overall when it was testing those edges and getting plays to receivers. And you want to talk about receivers in space. That's what Trent Seaborn was able to do. Went 19 for 26 for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, absolutely worthy of an honorable mention. I think he did well in that regard as well. And then a couple guys from Oak Mountain to finish it off. Marty Myricks, 19 carries for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then Charlie Vaccarella, before Carson Lewis came in and took over for them against Tuscaloosa County, 16 for 23, 253 yards, 2 touchdowns as well. Definitely have to make sure that he gets mentioned as well.
Yeah, some great performances there. Only 2 that I'll touch on. Or 3 that I'll touch on. Morgan Barnes, you already mentioned a little bit. He had 14 carries for 87 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Added 21 yards receiving to go over the century mark and all-purpose yard there for the Chelsea Hornets. If they're getting that from him and the 170-plus from Chase Malone with 6 combined touchdowns, yeah, they're going to be good the rest of the season. So great showing there from Morgan Barnes. Darian Mosley, another consistent performance. Talk about consistent receivers like Marcus Arnold. 3 receptions, a touchdown, 90 yards. Had an explosive touchdown there in the first half that gave them the 7-3 lead at the half as well. So he continues to be a good go-to target there for Trent Seaborn at the quarterback position for Thompson. Dylan Smith continues to be consistent as well for the Pelham Panthers. A big key for them. 3 touchdown passes, 167 yards on 8 of 14 passing. He can also run the football as well. He's been a key playmaker and is taking advantage of the weapons that he has out wide this year at the receiver position. So a great list of players, all the honorable mentions, the top 2 stars for each of us, all worthy performances, almost like our helmet sticker segment here. We need to start getting helmets from all these teams, but just unbelievable performances. A non-region week this week, but still some big performances expected with some challenging games ahead, and then we jump back into region play next week. So we're going to have some fun here down the stretch as we get closer and closer to cementing playoff spots here for each of our teams this year. Expect some big-time performances ahead here to finish out region play over the next several weeks. That brings us to the end of this week's Shelby County High School football show, but before we go, we always have to do it, our bold prediction of the week and what we expect ahead on Thursday and Friday night this week. So, Andrew, I turn to you first with your bold prediction on a non-region week of action this week. What is it that's going to stand out to us when we look at the headlines at the end of Friday night?
So I did a little bit of homework for this one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Looking at the Chelsea-Paul Bryant game overall, Chelsea, its single game points record is 69 points, and that came back in 1972.
Oh, no.
I think they break it this week.
No.
I think there's you got this and the Vincent Childersburg game, two of the most lopsided games that you could order up on the schedule. And I think between Paul Bryant struggles on the defensive side and with how explosive Chelsea has looked so far, I mean, they've already posted 51 points so far this season. I think they're going to be able to name their score in this one. And if they go out and they play a complete performance in this one, I think they hit the 70 mark.
Yeah, this that may be the most bold prediction we've ever had in our bold prediction segment. But honestly, I would not be completely shocked if that happened, because, like you said, they against the opponents that they've been better than this year, they've gone out and that offense has put up points, and they've put up points quickly. And with a running attack like they have, I mean, all it takes is breaking one tackle, and they can go to the house on any given play. So I do think at some point you'll probably see Cassidy slow it down a little bit with the running clock. And,
Right.
That's where you don't have the best opportunity of being right in that bold prediction. But still wouldn't surprise me. I say that it would surprise me a little bit, but that would be an impressive showing from Chelsea. I do think they win comfortably, so that's where you say you got the opportunity to hit that high mark. And I go to the Thompson-Clay game, a Thursday night bold prediction. Thompson's lost 2 in a row in this series. The offense has been a little slow out of the gate early in games this year. That ain't going to be the case this week. They're out to make a statement in this one. They've lost the last 2. They don't want to lose this one. They're going to come out and put up some points in a hurry in this game against a very good Clay defense. And I think Thompson's going to score 35-plus in this game, in a game where you expect 2 defensive juggernauts to go after it. Hopefully the defense doesn't give up 30-plus for Thompson, and we end up in a shootout like we did a few years ago or a couple years ago. But ultimately, I do think that Thompson is going to have a complete performance in this game, which is exactly what they need going into a game like Hewitt-Trussville the week after that. So we'll see both of those a little bit out on a limb, I'd say, this week. So maybe the best we've done in our bold prediction segment so far this season and since starting that last year. But it's going to be a lot of fun regardless this week to see what happens between those teams. We've got a busy week, even though it is a non-region week. We've got that big one on Thursday. We've got our game of the week on Friday between Briarwood and Leeds. And that's just the beginning of the action. It's going to be a fun week. So make sure you're following along with us on Twitter, on X, on Thursday and Friday night for all the live updates. We'll have the football show for you as well. And then all of our coverage, videos, photos, stories, everything posted to all of our platforms. If you're not following us on YouTube, on TikTok, make sure you're doing that. We've got fun shorts and reels that we're posting each and every week that are going out 3 times a day. So make sure you're following us on those platforms. Like, subscribe, whatever you can do. We just appreciate the support. And as always, got to thank our sponsors one more time, Wayne's Pest Control, 3D Air Services, Oak Mountain Hearing, and Montevallo Main Street for all their support as well. Alongside Andrew Simonson, I'm Alec Etheridge. That's going to do it for this week's Shelby County High School Football Show.